that want to amplify their stories pertaining to situations about their livelihoods, families, and so on. So it's a very interesting outlook. Yeah, and as well as sexual orientations as well. So she's trying to get funding from the local.
I thought they're pretty big on funding Singaporean filmmakers. There's
Oh yes, they are. They're pretty big. She's trying to get approval from the MDA,
right.
but she's trying to make a quality movie, and she was like asking for like about $250,000. I was like, whoa. I said to her, well, you should try to do something a little bit on a small scale. If not, that's okay.
What do you need? What are you looking for?
No, I'm just looking for a piece of paper. My notepad has been stolen all the time, so no, it's okay. I'm gonna make do with my
So
notepad.
I've got some if you want.
Okay. Okay, great. I will use this page just to. Okay, you ready? If I'm ready, you're ready. You're ready. It's not. Okay.
Okay.
No. I just turn to you.
Right.
But first, I'll introduce you first to everyone, and then I'll turn to you, and then we just talk.
Okay. My name is Eliza.
Eliza Knox. Okay. So, 1, 2, and 3. Hi, welcome to the National Critics' Choice Online News. I'm Robin Steinberg, and welcome to the Steinberg Review. And today we have a very interesting guest with me, and she's none other than Miss Lisa Knox, and she's based here in Southeast Asia as one of the great experts in information technology. And she's been marketing here for quite a while, and she's going to share with us more about leadership and how women can succeed in the area of leadership. And so we're going to turn to her and ask her for more advice. Miss Eliza, thank you for joining me here at the National Critics' Choice. It's been wonderful to have you on our show.
Thanks, Robin.
Tell us, what are your key secrets, in leadership? How did you manage to succeed, your role in marketing, information technology products, and so forth in Southeast Asia?
So just to make sure that people know what I do, it is technology, but it's online, digital media. I've worked at Google and now at Twitter. And before that, I had a career in financial services and banking and consulting. And so I've been able to look at leadership across a lot of things. Honestly, I think the most important thing in a career, and then that turns into your ability to lead, is to do something that you're passionate about. Find something that really makes you excited, so that when you get up in the morning, you feel like you're going to do something that you really love.
Now, speaking about love and passion, how do you manage, balance work life, and passion? It can be very challenging at many times, especially if you have a family.
Sure. So on work-life balance, and I think we had a chance to talk about this once before. I guess my perspective at this point is there is no such thing as balance. I think it's really whatever is comfortable for each person. So some people will carve out, X percent of time at work, X percent of time at home, X percent of time for themselves, and they'll do it sequentially. Other people like me have it all mixed up. You'll find me sometimes at my desk booking plane fares for my kids, or maybe in the middle of the day I need to go to school to have a parent-teacher meeting, and then at night, I'm home with my family, but I'll be online doing work. So I think it's very individual, and unfortunately, I think the word balance was meant in a good sense when that phrase started, but I think it's come to suggest to a lot of people that they're going to be able to find some incredible harmony that's perfect for them, that's the same for everybody, that there's a standard. And I think people are really busy. The world has gotten busier and busier, and I think for most people, there's just that task now of finding what works for them. If you can get by with less sleep and you want to do more, that's great. Maybe you want to sleep more and give up exercise, or people just need to find their own level of comfort. It's never going to seem like a perfect balance, because I think it's hard to do everything you want to do and get enough sleep. It's never enough time with your family, never enough time at work, probably never enough time for the hobbies you have. But just finding some accommodation that optimizes your happiness, understanding that you have to make trade-offs, is probably the right thing.
Now, what is leadership today? What's the definition for leadership, and how can women put themselves in the proper perspective?
So I think people have different definitions of leadership. For me, leadership is being able to set a strategy, set a vision, and motivate people to follow you to accomplish that. There are lots of different challenges for women versus men, if you want me to go into those.
Yes.
So I think at early stages of career, it's probably very similar. And many, many companies have been focusing on diversity, not just men and women, but LGBT, different ethnicities, which is great. I think that the more diverse a culture you have, the more innovative and creative you can be, because people are bringing so many different points of view. But what you do see, particularly with women, is that at a certain level, the number of women starts to cap out, and women start leaving. I think there are some documents in Europe that call the talent gap. McKinsey's done a number of papers on this, Catalyst in the US. And it's not just about leaving to have kids and be with a family. There's something else going on that we don't really know. So I think there are some challenges that may be slightly different for women. Many are the same. Many are being able to do well at your job, being able to manage a team, being able to build a client relationship, being able to sell, being able to set strategy. I think those are similar in terms of competencies. But I think there are some areas that are different. Would you like me to?
Yes, please do.
So I've done a lot of reading, and it's hard to know. A lot of this is qualitative or based on a few studies. But for example, one thing that tends to happen when men are evaluated for jobs is the discussion tends to be around, is the man capable of doing this? Does he have the potential? Frequently, the studies show that the discussion around the woman is, has she done it before? So that's something of an obstacle to overcome, because having potential to do something means that, people have seen that you're good at it and they're going to give you a chance. Having succeeded at it before means that someone has to have already given you the chance to do this. So that's, puts you in a slightly different situation. Women tend to have broad networks, lots of people that they know that encompass lots of people outside their work. Men have a tendency to build probably deeper networks and more in their company, which also can help them succeed. Women, again, historically, lots of sort of quotes and data on this, tend not to, for example, ask for raises. Whereas, in fact, if I just talk to my friends who are in senior leadership positions, they will tell you that 90 to 100% of the people who come into their office and say it's time to pay me more, promote me, are men. So there are just some interesting differences in how men and women maybe see themselves or culturally are looked at that women need to understand and adapt to.
Now, speaking about adaptation, what do you see ahead in the next couple of years? Do you see that that women in leadership and women emerging in leadership roles are going to be more prominent?
I think change is happening very, very slowly. There's definitely change. Gina Davis has an organization that's been focused on women in film in the U.S. and she's made a well-known film called Misrepresentation. And if you look at the film or talk to her, I think she's seen that there's been a lot of progress in many things, but the women still seem to cap out at 17%. And she uses a lot of great examples. I can't remember all of them. One is the number of female heart surgeons in the U.S. Another is women in crowd scenes in movies. And she has some fantastic statistics, which I don't have at my fingertips, but something like in the U.S., if we keep going at the rate we're going, even though there are lots more women in Congress, it'll be 250 years until we're even. even in Singapore, I think to get to go from 6% to 15% women on boards or 10, it's 158 women in the next few years. I'd have to go back and check these, or maybe you'd like to check them. But they're pretty large numbers still to get to anything that's closer to gender representation in society. I'm not sure everything has to be 50-50, but if you said, are we adapting, are we getting there? I think there are a lot of numbers where we're still nowhere close to 50-50. And you see, there's a very interesting and controversial topic, which is quotas. Should you have a quota to move things towards whatever one believes fair representation is? There's a lot of pros and cons, and it tends to get people quite excited talking about this. So Malaysia set a quota for women in the civil service, I believe, a number of years ago to get to 30%, and they have achieved that. There's some discussion about whether they might want to do the same thing for women on boards. And people tend to have pretty polarized opinions. Norway did set a quota of 40% women on boards. They do have that now. They have met it. Some countries like Australia, where they haven't set the quota but they've been talking about it, the number of women on boards has gone up quite dramatically from, I think, 8% a few years ago to 14% now. So even just talking about the quota makes people aware, but it doesn't shift it all the way. So are we making progress? Absolutely. Are we at a level of senior corporate leaders or board leaders or politicians that reflects the number of women in society? No. Are we going to get there anytime soon? I don't think so.
Now, speaking of progress, what will be the key issues that women and men can do, to enhance the quality of life and and fair provision of opportunities for women in leadership?
So I think that's a hard question that a lot of HR experts struggle with, and I'm not an HR expert, so I'm not sure I have the answer. I think one thing for women and men in their careers is there's been a lot of talk over many years about mentors, and I think mentors are great. Mentors are people whom you can discuss things with, ask their opinion, but they're not enough when you are in a situation that might be challenging. Then you need what I would call a sponsor. Somebody who's really going to stick their neck out, who's going to say, I don't care what the rest of you think, Robin is terrific, and it's time to give him a chance. Or, I know we're not sure about Eliza, but really this is the time that we need to see if she can succeed or fail at this. Someone who's maybe not going to stake their entire reputation, but who's willing to take a risk on the person that they're sponsoring. And I think for both women and men, they need such a person. And in general, men have probably more commonly had that within their companies, if we're talking about a corporate situation, than women have in the past. So I think it's something to look for. I think networking and mentors are all really good elements that go beyond just did you do a competent job, but really, I think if people want to make a leap or really want to move aggressively in their careers, or even just take a big side step and find something, it's really great to have a sponsor. You can do it without one. In many cases people do, but having a sponsor, someone you can turn to who can really help kind of pull you as opposed to you just pushing, I think is really a key to unlocking a lot of opportunities.
Now, speaking about opportunities, and you spoke about networking, has social networks today changed the landscape for women in leadership? Because networking seems to be playing a very important role.
So I think that social networking does a lot for being able to find people who you might want to meet with and know a little bit about them. I don't think it builds the relationships. So when you talk about networking, I guess there's networking, who do you know, how many people do you know maybe. But again, with networking, it's how well do you know them? Are they willing to introduce you to somebody? Are they willing to recommend you to somebody? Are they willing to stick their neck out for you and offer you a job or push somebody else to offer you a job? So social networks like LinkedIn or Facebook are fantastic for keeping in touch with people, or maybe establishing a connection with someone you just met, whose business card you got. So I think they help that initial phase. I'm not sure. I think there's still a personal element to getting to the point where I'm willing to introduce you to somebody and put my name on it. I mean, just meeting you somewhere and getting your business card, for me, it's not necessarily enough. If you say, well, can I meet someone that you, Eliza, know was really quite hard to get to know, and I've just met you at a conference and don't know you at all, maybe I need a little bit more to make that introduction. And then if you're asking me, will you recommend me for a job with this person, I still need to maybe see you in a work environment or get some other referrals. So I think that what social networking has done is made it much easier to reach out to more people, to find them, and to take that initial step of getting to know them. But I don't think it's enough. Like it doesn't change the landscape in that it doesn't turn somebody into an advocate for me, right? Because they still need to see me in action.
Yes, and speaking about seeing you in action, when you first arrived in Asia, what was your criteria choosing Asia to be your next best opportunity, as well as how did you manage to succeed your role and your foothold in leadership in Asia?
Okay, well, so this depends a little bit on whether you want to consider Australia Asia. But not long after university, I lived in New York. I went to business school at night, and when I finished, I really wanted to live overseas. And I had always wanted to live in Asia. I had a very influential high school Asian studies teacher, and I did not major in it, but I took a number of Asian studies courses in college. But I did not manage to take an Asian language. So I had been told, you really can't move to Asia, which is a shame. Probably should have come with just English. But so I looked on a map and said, well, Australia's close to Asia and they speak English, and plus they have really nice beaches, so I think I'll go there. So I moved there. I worked for a company called the Boston Consulting Group, and the whole time I was there, I kept saying, I eventually want to go to Asia, like not Australasia, whatever. I want to be up there on that continent that everybody calls Asia. And they said, well, you don't speak an Asian language and you're still a new consultant. But ultimately, I learned my craft well enough. I was a specialist in financial services that the firm asked me to build a financial services practice here. So I came to Singapore. There was one other person in the office at the time, and I had to build my own personal network and build a network for work. We needed to sell consulting business. So at that time, I tried to figure out how to... Somebody who used to be here.
Sorry, should I leave or?
No, sorry. No, it's okay. It's okay.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know if
sorry.
you... Okay.
Sorry. I'll see you later.
Okay.
Sorry.
Alright. Sorry about that.
No problem, I'm embarrassed. Okay,
Sorry
just give me a
about
few minutes. Okay, so at that time, if you can cut it, right? So, do you want her to sit here? I don't know.
No, it's okay.
So at that time, I had to build the company reputation as well as my own. So I joined some organizations here, including some women's organizations like Financial Women's Association. I had very young children at that time. Well, actually only one, and then I had another one here. And there were some parents groups where I met a number of people. So on the personal side, and we started to hire people at work, and then professionally. In the case of consulting, really the best contacts were people who had been to business school overseas, who knew about BCG from maybe mini MBA training programs like Citibankers. And so we started reaching out to them both one-on-one and through one-to-many events like dinners, or having other partners come out from BCG to talk about the work we did. And so that eventually snowballed, if you will, and willed into quite a strong network of people in financial services, people who were clients, people who had come to events, people I knew personally. We lived here for 4 years, and then we went to the US for a while. And when I came back with Google, I had a little bit of a network, but I had to rebuild it because I'd been gone some time. And I think one of the, and I had built networks not only in Singapore, I guess I referred to Singapore specifically, but I had a regional role. So I had built at least beginnings of networks in most countries in Asia, so China and Japan and Korea and Indonesia, all the places I had clients, India. And then when I came back this time, I had kept in touch with a lot of those people, even before really strong social networks. I liked so many of the people I met and found them so interesting that I had kept in touch, by email, or if they had come to the U.S. or if I had been out. I did come out here for work. and then was able to start rebuilding when I came back. And as you say, again, the social networks have come into being, so I was able to more quickly find them again, relocate them. And then since I've been back here, there are other organizations that have really sprung up. So Board of Gender is a key one in Singapore. Junie Fu, who's Singaporean, and Juanita Woodward, who's an expat who's been here about 20 years, are working under the auspices of the SCCO, I think, under the ministry, and have taken over from some other people who launched it. And it's an organization dedicated to getting women on boards here in Singapore. They have 100 top spokespeople, about 50 women, of whom I'm one, and then 50 men who are really advocating, in some cases sponsoring, women to get on boards here. And it's not only about boards, but that's the general direction, and obviously it plays into women in leadership as well.
Amazing. Now, you have an amazing career, and what sort of advice would you give for women, especially abroad, coming to Asia and wants to find a place where they could start their life here and begin doing business and getting employment?
Wow, that's a big one. So I guess, well, first of all, come if you like adventure and fast pace of business, and I guess you can pick any single country and be immersed there, or you can take the approach I have, which is a regional role. So I'm never an expert in any one country, but I get challenged every day or every week. I have to know cultural norms in Japan and cultural norms in India, and generally as a foreigner, people make allowances for you, which is really nice. You make mistakes, but you do need to learn how to run teams in all those places. So if you like that as a challenge, then this is the right place for you. And of course, Asia's always talked about as the highest growth region, or one of the highest growth region, similar to many other emerging markets. So I guess the thing to do is, first, if you really know no one here, probably start out with your social network and think about the kinds of jobs you might like and who to reach out to on that basis. Maybe get yourself out here, meet the people in that social network and see what's around. I think trying to figure out what is your passion, as I said earlier. Do you want to be in marketing? Do you want to be in nonprofits? Do you want a job, again, that immerses you in the local economy, or one that is broad-based? Do you want to be an export, or do you want to be domestic? And get focused on that and reach out to people who can help you in those areas. I think I see a lot of young women, young expats generally, coming here and finding a lot of success. I met a woman from Argentina just last week who come out. She had an offer of some part-time speaking engagements. She came out and through the people who offered her that, looked around and has got quite a good job offer. She was a little concerned about, is this the right job offer? My advice in that case was, it is a job offer. If you really want to come here, why don't you take it? Make the best of it and then go from there.
Now, most leaders have asked, especially women as well, that they have a question, and that is, how do you overcome fear in leadership? Because when you are a leader or a head of department of or marketing or international sales, etc., fear or anxiety, we call it, is something that the people are trying to resolve. It's a mystery, in fact. So we'd like to ask you, since you have been here for quite a while, how do you overcome fear?
So, I think a little bit of fear and anxiety is healthy, right? It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you thinking about, what do I need to do next? How do I reach out to my staff or to my clients? Too much fear can obviously impede your progress. I'm not sure if this is what you're referring to, but women are often discussed as having an imposter syndrome, which is the fear or anxiety that tomorrow morning people will discover at work that I actually have no idea what I'm doing, that I'm not good at my job. Somehow inherently, on average, not a psychologist, women tend to have a little bit more of this self-doubt than men. Maybe it's a social thing. And so for that, I think you probably need some peer support. I suspect if you're growing into leadership, you'll have gotten a lot of positive feedback, top-down, 360, that you are good, and you need to learn to absorb that and believe in yourself. And I'm not sure I have any more of a cure-all than that. There's no secret special, drink that's gonna make that go away.
So you're saying there's no cure to fear. Is that something that you have to build a peer support?
I think you build confidence over time. That's part of growing into leadership. And I think you want to be mostly confident, but have enough anxiety to keep you on your toes and to keep you from being arrogant. I think there are some arrogant leaders who are strong, who run large companies, who are good at what they do. But I think the ideal is to be a great leader who can also connect with people and not put them off.
Well, wise words, and thank you for joining us, Ms. Knox, for giving us some insights on what leadership is and what it takes to be a great leader for women here in the world and even in Southeast Asia.
So, Robin, I have one last tip, if you want it. And we
Yes,
can
of
not,
course. Please give me a
often, well, no, it's, it's a little specific, but I should have touched on with work-life balance, because what happens is many young women have high aspirations, go pretty far in their career, and then do try to make these trade-offs between having a family and continuing to grow at work. And I think my only specific tip that I've ever given to people, besides, pick something you're passionate and follow it and find a staunch advocate, is spend more money than you ever thought you would on childcare. Now, fortunately, in some places like Singapore and some other countries in Asia, childcare is more affordable than in other countries. For example, it's a huge challenge in Japan. But if you want to have a family and you want to work, it's quite stressful if somebody in the family has to be home at 5 o'clock, or if there's only certain hours you can work. I think it adds to your personal stress and your family stress. So, there have been points in my career where we've spent, I'm married, and where we've spent probably more than what we had after tax from one income on child care in order. So financially that may be sound, but in terms of personal choice, if we're not working just to make an income, but working because it's something we want to do and something we get fulfillment out of, that was the right decision. So I think sometimes when you're younger, that seems like a daunting and maybe not promising angle. So anyway, that's been something I've always shared, and
Yes.
if your listeners find that interesting,
Great.
then that's great.
Now, one more thing, just one last thing, and that is sexual harassment. There are women who are applying out the ladder in leadership, and women are trying to resolve this issue. How do women overcome sexual harassment, and how can they avoid it? Have you faced that before?
Wow. No, I mean, sexual harassment, as I understand it, is something that's legally defined in terms of being spoken to or physically approached in certain ways. And I'm not a lawyer. In the companies I've been in, that needs to be immediately reported to HR, and I believe there are laws around how that's dealt with.
But if you face that issue, what would you do?
I would go immediately to my corporate HR to talk about how that happened and ask them to help me handle it in the appropriate way for that company.
Oh, amazing. Well, Ms. Aliza Knox, thank you for joining us once again and for your advice for the women all around the world. And folks, thank you for joining me here at the National Critics' Choice, the Stienberg Review. And women around the world, please do not fear and do not be anxious. Stay focused, and if you need be, you can always drop an email to our National Critics' Choice, or even to Miss Aliza Knox if you can find her on Twitter. Once again, I'm Robin Steinberg. Thank you for joining me. Thank you.
Thanks. What you could do, you could put up my Twitter handle if you want to, or something like that, which is @Aliza Knox.
Yeah, sure.
You can put the hashtag on there. Robin, how did you get your last name?
Wait, this part. Yeah, that part.